What's going on YouTube? It's not often that a brand new car company gets to produce not one, but two of their proposed models.
Yet here we are in the all-new Rivian R1S, the brand's first all-electric three-row SUV.
So is this the perfect rugged luxury SUV? Let's go ahead and find out. All right, so let's get things started here under the hood. Of course, this is an electric vehicle. You're not gonna find an engine or anything like that. You will find a very large frunk. Here are the dimensions. You could, in theory, calculate the cubic feet measurement from that, but we retired from mathing after we graduated from college. Anyways, let's talk numbers though, besides for the frunk. That's gonna be the power. That's what you really wanna know about. This model has the quad motor all-wheel drive system, 835 horsepower and 908 pound-feet of torque. Now they will be offering lower powered versions as well, so you have approximately 600 horsepower and 700 horsepower options.
And we'll go through all of that in more detail in the test drive portion. This one particularly has a 0 to 60 of 3 seconds, and as far as EPA range, we're looking at 321 miles with the quad motor all-wheel drive system.
But this, of course, has a very futuristic looking exterior, so let's go ahead and get to that. Now, like I said, this does have a futuristic looking exterior, but one of the things I really like about this SUV is that it's futuristic, but not in an offensive way. This is certainly not a crazy Cybertruck kind of look. They have a kind of subtle and just really well executed design that I like a lot. Let's talk about some of the elements. Of course, you don't have a traditional large grille. You do have a smaller one here for a little bit of ventilation. Your lower grille is finished with a little bit of silver through here. You also have some recovery hooks because this is designed to be used off-road, which I'll talk about in just a second. And let's look at the lighting. So we have a really cool single light bar effect that goes all the way across the front. This serves as your daytime running light. It's got kind of a little bit of a texture inside of it. And then we have these really neat looking 3D headlights. As you can see, we have 4 crystal projector LEDs. We also have a turn signal indicator which kind of encapsulates around it. Makes for a really cool look. Now, as I squat down here, let's talk a little bit more about that off-road capability. Rivian really wants you to use this as an adventure vehicle. And because of that, and the available air suspension, we do have between 8 and 14.9 inches of ground clearance, depending on the setting. Yes, you heard me right, up to 14 inches of ground clearance, which is an absolute insane amount. Now, as we move around to the rear design, you'll continue to see these same themes from the front carry on back here, and it has a very boxy look to it overall, even more boxy than the R1T truck.
Yeah, and I really like how it's kind of two-tone all the way to the bottom here, intersecting into our taillights. And Drew's gonna go ahead and hop inside and see if all elements of these taillights are LED. So we do have an LED brake light. Our reverse light is integrated down here in the lower area, and we do also have an LED turn signal indicator. So 3 out of 3 elements LED. As you would expect out of a futuristic EV like this, you are gonna have all the elements as LED, and I really love the way this taillight looks. Now dropping down, we have Rivian branding, R1S, and then in this lower area, this is gonna be finished in a rugged matte black plastic, and if you're curious about tow rating, it's gonna be 7,700 pounds.
And I also don't want to forget to mention that you have LED fog lamps. But let's take a look at the wheels. We have the very stylish looking 22-inch alloy wheels. Really cool contrast look to these, and I love that yellow brake caliper in the back. Matches with all the other accents around the rest of the vehicle. Now, you do have standard 21-inch alloys, and you can get 20-inch alloys if you prefer that tougher, more off-road rugged model, because those will be the ones that are wrapped in all-terrain tires. Coming over here, you got that Rivian branding again with the yellow accents. And then taking a look at our mirrors, we do have fully loaded mirrors, so you have power folding, auto dimming, blind spot monitoring, and heating.
Now this is an EV after all, so the charge port is integrated right up here in the front, and we have a very fancy opening system for that. Now as far as the battery pack size itself, we're looking at 135 kilowatt hours for this large pack model. The max pack is 180 kilowatt hours, and the standard pack is 105 kilowatt hours. And we'll get into all the charging specifics when we go on the test drive later in this video. And here at the side, you can tell that this has a very boxy shape, just like the front and rear designs. I love the way this SUV looks. Now, in terms of the overall length, 200.8 inches long, which does mean that it's about 17 inches shorter than a Rivian R1T if you're keeping tabs on that, but it is about the same size as a lot of other three-row SUVs. Now, cool design elements, you're gonna notice that we have a black roof with some chrome trim that kind of sweeps into the rear design, as I talked about a little bit earlier, and we are going to also have flush mount door handles. Now, as far as your safety systems are concerned, I want to talk about this as well because Rivian is very advanced here. They're going to be including all 4 of your main active safety features as standard equipment on the R1S. Now, for your adaptive cruise control, that is known as Drivers Plus, and that's going to have level 2 hands-free highway driving on mapped roads. So you do have that really cool functionality to kind of have the hands-free system on this R1S. But guys, there is a really cool cabin waiting for you on the inside. I hear it's also green, so let's go ahead and check that out.
If you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
and we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
All right, it's time to see what kind of luxury we have on the inside. But first, let's take a look at the very unique Rivian key. As you can see, this is actually designed to be a carabiner, and you can attach that to, your backpack or whatever when you're going on a hike. You also, of course, have digital key to get inside the vehicle as well if you don't want to use the traditional style fob. But as you approach, it'll go ahead and fold the mirrors out, pop the door handles out as well. And let's go ahead and take a look inside this really beautifully executed cabin. As you can see, of course, it is green, which is one of the available color choices. You are going to have this seat always standard though. So this is a vegan leather. Of course, they're not going to be using a real leather, but it is extremely realistic and just a really beautifully designed seat. Like I was saying, lots of stitching details. You have a cloth accent. You've got the Rivian branding right through there as well. In addition to this forest edge green, you can choose ocean coast gray or black. Now, as far as the seats, these appear to be 10-way power adjusting with 4-way lumbar support, and we'll go ahead and climb inside. Now, when you get inside, you'll actually see that the vehicle pretty much is already booted up as far as the electronics and stuff are concerned. And by the way, you do have memory seating as well as memory for your steering wheel and your mirrors. That is going to be linked to your key fob and your driver profile. But this cabin is just really beautiful, and I want to start by taking a look at all the different materials in here. So, coming to the door trim, as you can see, we are going to have that leather material that runs all through here, as well as down on the bottom and along the top. So all the surfaces you're going to touch are covered in this nice material with the stitching detail. We have a lot of open pore wood. You're going to see that reflected onto the dashboard as we move to this area. This is going to be all the leatherette material, lots of this open pore wood. And this is really open, the most open of any open pore wood I've ever touched. Like, I'm pretty sure if you rub this aggressively, you might get a splinter. It is extremely, extremely nice wood, and it does have the Rivian branding in it as well. Everything in here does fit together super nicely and feel solid. Now, to start up the Rivian, you're just gonna put your foot on the brake. But like always, let's go ahead and move in closer and take a look at all the details. First off, we have our gauge cluster. As you can see, you've got a digital screen right here in front of the driver. It's got all the expected information. You also have your efficiency over here on the side, and it does change depending on what you're doing. I do want to point out though that you don't have a head-up display. Now, as we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got a heavily themed one, matches with all the other aspects of the cabin, including our airbag cover and our beautiful natural wood accents. As far as the wheel itself, it is going to be heated. It will also be power adjusting. However, you don't have the controls on the steering wheel itself, just like Tesla does. You make your steering wheel adjustments over there in the display, and the mirrors are the same way. Again, that links to your driver profile. But let's go ahead and take a look at interior storage next. So we've got the split opening area. You guys have a little sensor right there, and it will electronically open up. Once inside, we have a generously sized center console. It is quite deep, felt lined on all the sides, and you've got a couple USB ports inside. But you're saving the environment with an electric car, so let's save some money with our coupons as well, and they do fit in there just fine. Now up in front of that, you've got a large area. This is actually all a wireless phone charging pad, so I believe this might be big enough to charge an iPad. It's really, really large area. And then of course, you just have this space, a very versatile space where if you had a family or you have some off-road gear, you can just throw it up here and it will perfectly fit in there. This of course is one of the most unique elements though about Rivian, is that you've got this removable speaker, so you can just pull right there and take this portable speaker out on the campsite with you or wherever you need to go for your tailgate. Really unique feature, and it just kind of fits right in there and charges up on its own. Now of course, there's no shifter or anything taking up space. That's why you have so much of it. It's because it's up here in the column. Controls, very simple. You're just going to press down. That will activate drive. Press up. That will activate reverse. When you go into reverse, of course, you're going to have a 360-degree camera system. Rivian says they've got 11 different cameras on board with this model. As you can see, we've got the overhead view pulled up right now. We also have our back view with active trajectory, front and rear parking sensors. And I can press this button right here that will cycle between our front and back camera. If I press this button, this will give us some additional views, including our side view, so we don't scrape those beautiful 22-inch rims, excuse me. And then of course press the end of the stock for park. Now in an effort to keep things very minimalistic, most of the rest of the interior's functionality is going to be located here inside of the large middle display. So this display is 15.6 inches, and let's go ahead and dive into some of the functionalities. The first thing I want to talk about though are your climate controls. So you're going to find those down here in the lower corner. If I tap right there, that's going to bring up my broader menu. So let me go ahead and power it on here. One of the unique things about this system is that, like what Tesla is doing, the vents don't have any type of control for you to adjust. You're going to use this slider right here to make those adjustments. So you can actually kind of see and hear that move as I move the little toggle around in the display itself. Now, very responsive system here. You can control all types of different functionalities, and you can do all three rows from up here in the front. So if I press that, I go to the middle row, and if I press that, we even can go into the third row and do some things with the climate control. So this is a very nicely done system. Off to both sides, you'll notice that we have 3-stage heated seats. That's included as standard equipment. Adventure Plus models will also get the ventilated seats, and there's our heated steering wheel control. Tap that again, I will go ahead and collapse that, and we'll take a look at some of the other functions inside of here. First thing is going to be our navigation system. So this is our built-in navigation. Really nice look to this, very fast performance. That's one of the first things I noticed about this system is just how fast it is. Everything loads basically instantaneously. So I've done a really good job here with the software. Now you do also have some shortcut buttons. That one there is a very important one because it brings you to basically all the different adjustments you can make to this SUV. You've got a ton of different drive modes right over there. You can also customize your ride quality, the level of brake region, stability control, ride height for the air suspension, all types of adjustments you can do. And we'll cycle through a few of those a little later in that test drive section. I do want to point out that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, though, are not available on this system. So you will be using all this stuff that's built in for this model. And then you've got a few more functions, including those things I was talking about earlier with your mirror and steering wheel adjustments. But let's go ahead and take a listen to the audio system. So You can come over here and actually adjust the slider. The easier way to do it, though, would just be to use this little button here on the steering wheel. So let's go ahead and hear this Meridian sound system. Yeah, so overall sound quality is certainly excellent, as you would expect. Especially here in an EV, you don't have any engine noise or anything to distract. You just have that pure sound quality. And finally, wrapping up the front of the cabin, we do have an auto dimming mirror. We have an Alcantara headliner. And then we have a very large panoramic sunroof. As you can see, this is a fixed sunroof. It also does not have a sunshade. However, it is heavily tinted.
Well guys, here we are in the all-new Rivian R1S's rear area. Now, of course, this is a very important part about this all-electric SUV because it's an all-electric 3-row SUV, which means you're going to use it for your family. So let's see how big it is. Let's talk about all the features as well. 36.6 inches of legroom, 39.6 inches of headroom. So really good headroom figures. Of course, you would expect that out of that big boxy exterior design, that you're going to have a lot of open air experience. You definitely will. And I do really appreciate that we have the full glass roof as well. It really makes for a cool experience here in the second row. Now, as far as the legroom is concerned, that's going to be pretty good for a 3-row SUV. It's not going to be like the largest thing that you can get, but with the seat adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", I'm still looking at about 6.5 inches of space between my knees and the seat back, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat to maximize comfort. I also really love these floor mats. These floor mats are really cool, and I love how they match with the green interior color combination. Now, I do also want to point out these second row seats can slide forward and back. They can also recline a really good distance, so you can make the most out of your space in the third row or here in the second row. Now, here in the center, we are going to have standard climate vents on every R1S model, and then to control all of the adjustments, we do have a nice screen here. So we do have 4-zone climate control, which means that both of our rear passengers can adjust their own temperature independent from the front. We're also going to have standard 3-stage heated rear seats. So a lot of features in this R1S. Down below that, 2 USB-C ports as well. And we're not done yet, because in the back of the seats, we also have a USB-C port and a coat hook. So I really like the design of this as well. It really has a cool look to it. Now, if we fold down the central armrest here, we're going to have 2 cup holders built into here, once again with that nice square design. And then let's check out our door trim. Our door trim is going to be made of really nice materials. Leatherette on all the upper portion. We do have some wood trim, leather through the middle part as well in that nice green color. And then down in the very bottom, we have a lot of storage. You can actually kind of pull it out here and extend it to as large as you need it to be. But the big question is going to be the third row in this R1S, so let's go ahead and get back there and see how that is. Now, before we do that, I do want to point out, I failed to mention there is a household style outlet integrated right under this lip right here, so you can keep things charged up here in the second row. But in order to get into the third row itself, you just push this little button right here on the back of the seat back. When you do that, the seat will slide forward and out of the way. Really nice, easy setup to get into the third row. And then let's go ahead and get back here. Now, first of all, I want to commend Rivian on keeping the same seat design in the third row. These are beautifully crafted seats, and typically manufacturers will cheap out on the seat design and make it not as premium as the other rows of seats. You're still going to have that very fancy seat design here in the third row. I do want to point out it's 2 seats, so you're not going to have 3 seats in the third row, but as far as the space is concerned, I'm actually very impressed. I don't have official legroom figures, but as you can see, the thigh support is pretty good. My feet can easily slide up underneath the seat, so overall, I'm quite comfortable. And do keep in mind, this seat is adjusted all the way back in its tracks and reclined a pretty good ways. So you could certainly make more third row space if you want to. As far as how this falls on our third row rating scale, I'm going to say it's fit for adults. This is a pretty solid third row, actually. It's one of the better ones that I've ever been in. So certainly very good. And as far as features are concerned, we do have a leather padded armrest portion on all of these sides here. We do have a cup holder in front of that. Vents integrated here in your B-pillar. And then I do want to point out that we also have our own third row specific moonroof up here. So Very few vehicles have a third row moonroof. This Rivian R1S is going to be one of those that lets the third row passengers enjoy that open air experience. Now, walking up to the R1S's tailgate, of course, we do have a standard power one, so you can just locate the button right there. It will open this portion of the tailgate up, but you will notice that we actually have a split tailgate design. So similar to what you see on like the BMW X5, BMW X7, you have that split tailgate design, which does make for really awesome tailgating, which I'm sure a lot of Rivian owners will do because this is a very outdoorsy vehicle for all of your outdoors adventures. Now, as far as the space is concerned, let's go ahead and dive into that. This R1S is pretty impressive because we have 17 cubic feet of space behind the third row, 46 cubic feet behind the second row, and as a maximum, we're looking at 104 cubic feet of cargo capacity. If you're curious as to how that compares with other three-row SUVs, that's actually a very good figure. The Cadillac Escalade, for reference, in its standard wheelbase form is only about 109 cubic feet, so really not much of a sacrifice in terms of space. Now, as far as the finishings, though, as you can tell, Rivian has finished it nicely, so we do have a nice carpeting along the floor. It's been pristinely vacuumed, so shout out to the owner who did a fantastic job of getting this car ready for us. And then underneath of the floor here, we do have plenty of space for your charging cables, first aid kit as well, and then let's go ahead and dive into some of the functionalities. So we have a household style outlet back here as well as a 12-volt outlet. Now the third row is going to be manually folding. So you just kind of reach up there, fold the third row down. There is not a power option available, so do keep that in mind. And then these buttons right here will electrically fold the second row seats. So it's nice and easy with a one press to fold the second row. The third row is a little bit harder to fold, but that's going to unlock your full 104 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Now I'm going to pull out my measuring tape here and measure from the front seat all the way to the rear of the cargo area. We're looking at about 84 inches of space, exactly 7 foot of space from the seat back all the way to the rear of the cargo area, which I'm not sure if that fits like a kayak or anything. I don't do a lot of outdoorsy activities, but you guys can let us know in the comments down below. I'd say this is going to be good to fit a lot of belongings on your outdoor adventures. Well guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Rivian R1S quad motor all-wheel drive. We cannot wait to show you what this vehicle is all about. We will be talking about a lot of different things in this test drive, as you can see on the screen right now, but we will start with the hard acceleration, and we're definitely very grateful for the owner for letting us do a full test drive actually in our home turf so we can show everything about this R1S when it comes to driving dynamics. Oh my gosh. It's a new meaning to take your breath.
Goodness gracious. Well, so we've been behind the wheel, of course, a number of really fast vehicles, but there's something uniquely shocking about this one, and it's just the size of this SUV. You just do not expect something that's as big as this to move like that.
No.
You know, we're talking, what is that, like a Model 3 Performance type of...
Yeah, Model 3 Performance is 3.1. This is actually 3 seconds to 60.
Even faster.
Yeah.
It's just kind of mind-boggling, really. It is absolutely crazy. Now, as we mentioned at the spec dump, we have 835 horsepower, 908 pound-feet of torque. Those, of course, are just
outrageous.
Absurd amount of power. And you can certainly feel that. That's exactly why you can go so fast in something so big. It's just really a crazy thing. But because you have 4 electric motors, that's right, 4 electric motors, 1 for each wheel, that gives you just an absolute ton of power delivery, and of course capability as well, because having the unique advantage of different power source for each wheel means if you are off-road, you could even get perhaps 3 wheels off the ground and still power through with the last one.
Right, and if you divide 800 horsepower divided by 4, each one's going to be making around 200 and some horsepower.
That's
so
right.
we do know that math. So
yeah.
Wow.
Goodness gracious. We're almost at 80 miles an hour.
Not your average three-row SUV by any means.
Just so effortless. I mean, that's not even like, you know, full throttle
Yeah.
acceleration there. Just kind of gently getting up to speed. You're going to absolutely blow away anybody around you.
Yeah, and that was in all-purpose mode. Now, the first two accelerations we did, those were in sport mode. So, of course, sport is going to, you know, give you your best performance, that 3 seconds, 0 to 60. All-purpose says for all roads, all weather, and all kinds of adventures. So it's pretty much your just standard drive mode in this vehicle. Now, of course, there are other powertrain options on this Rivian R1S. You don't have to go for this fully crazy quad motor setup, although I would highly recommend if you have the additional $8,000 that Rivian is charging for this. The performance dual motor all-wheel drive, so you can knock the motors down to just 2. That's going to have 700 horsepower, 700 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is 3.5 seconds on that model, and that's about a $5,000 option. Now, the standard option is the dual motor all-wheel drive. That was the performance one that I just mentioned. That's going to have 600 horsepower and 600 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60, 4.5 seconds on that one. It sounds really stupid to say that the standard option is 600 horsepower, but that is the base Rivian R1S.
Right. And just be aware that the battery packs, the different configurations, some of those are not currently in production, but that's what you can, you know, actually order right now if you don't mind waiting a little while.
But we would be remiss if we didn't take a second to talk about the ride quality, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are not just interested in R1S just for the performance. Of course, that's a big aspect of it, but you're also interested because it's a 3-row SUV. And what do you do with that? You take it on road trips and you drive it on highways. So just cruising along here, I want to talk about your ride quality. We do have an air suspension on this model, and that does mean that you have really good ride quality. As we go over the bridge right there, you'll see it does a good job of controlling this vehicle. Of course, it's big and heavy, and it does a good job of making sure it doesn't feel that way on the road, and also just soaking up those bumps. It's not quite as smooth as something, you know, maybe like a BMW X7's air suspension. You have a little bit more intrusion into the cabin, but it's still a very good ride quality overall.
Right. I would actually say it's pretty far from one of those vehicles.
Yeah.
I feel they've done the air suspension more for capability in this vehicle than anything else, because you have all that additional ground clearance, so you can highly configure that for going off-road, and you can change the different characteristics depending on your drive mode. So I think they chose to do this a lot more for that functionality versus just having a purely luxurious ride quality.
And you know we're going to do it. We're going to get one of our signature Car Confections elements, our sound level reading in this R1S, going 55 miles an hour in our designated Kentucky strip of road. I'm very excited to see how quiet this is, because just sitting here listening to the ambience, it seems really quiet, guys. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Looks like we've settled in at 54.8 decibels. That is a very good sound level reading. As far as how that compares to other luxury 3-row products, that is going to place it right in about the middle of the segment. It's going to be actually a little bit quieter than the all-new Lexus LX 600 Ultra Luxury, a little bit quieter than the Cadillac Escalade, and those were actually all tested on this exact same stretch of road, and we even have a little bit of rain going on, so I'd say it might be even a little bit louder than a traditional reading there. So one of the quietest products in the class, and of course you expect that. You have no engine noise entering into the cabin, but we do actually have some noise entering into the cabin from the electric motors.
I would say that's the predominant noise that I hear more than I hear anything outside the vehicle. Is actually there's this kind of a whining sound, because you have 4 electric motors, so combined they have a kind of a chorus of, electrodes moving around, you know. It's kind of an interesting sound. I really like it though, because, you know, most EVs kind of are using fake noises and stuff to add that driving interest, but in this case you have this authentic sound that sounds super futuristic and super interesting.
And you really do feel like you're in a spaceship.
So this is a fast SUV. You might be wondering, does that mean it is a sporty SUV? Well, in some ways it is. I would not say it's definitely a hard edge sporty SUV
No.
though, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're looking at a very large vehicle. Steering nice and fast. You do get a quick response. I do like that part of it. Of course, you're going to have a pretty good amount of body roll though, because as we've discussed, even though you have the air suspension and the adaptive dampers, it is pretty tall off the ground and definitely off-road biased in terms of how they planned the suspension.
And at the beginning of the video, we did only mention that this model, as equipped, has 321 miles of range. But of course, it's going to be important for you to know the other versions and how much range they're going to have. So, the standard pack model is a 105 kilowatt hour battery. Now, because of that, and that's dual motor, you're going to have a 260 mile range on that, which is not bad at all for a 3-row SUV. And that's a standard setup. Now, if you go for the large pack, that's going to be a 135 kilowatt hour battery pack. If you go for the dual motor all-wheel drive or the performance dual motor all-wheel drive, that's a tongue twister right there, 340 miles of range. If you go for the quad motor like what we have here, that's where you get your 321 miles of range. Now, they do also have the max pack, which is a ridiculously big battery size of 180 kilowatt hours, and that is going to have over 400 miles of range. It's not fully in production yet, and it hasn't been rated by the EPA yet.
Let's talk a little bit about the regen. So right now I'm just using that to slow down, and I'm in the standard setting. So there's two settings in the R1S. It's going to be standard and strong. I would suggest renaming these though. Strong and stronger would probably be the best ways to describe them. It's definitely very strong even in the standard mode, and really, really strong in the strong mode.
It's actually called high.
Oh, high mode?
Yeah.
Well, I just made that up then. It's strong. That's why I call it that, is because it is very strong. Be aware though, you can't turn it off. But most people, I think, when you have an EV, you do prefer that one pedal drive, which you can certainly do in this.
And lastly, I do want to mention your warranty information for this R1S. Your basic and powertrain warranty is going to be 5 years and 60,000 miles, which is good, especially if you compare it to some of the other luxury competition, like a BMW or Mercedes. It's going to be a little bit longer than that, a year longer and 10 more thousand miles. And as far as the drivetrain and the battery warranty, they are protecting that a lot longer to give you guys a peace of mind. 8 years and 175,000 miles. So for you R1S owners, you can really drive the wheels off of this thing and not really have to worry about not being covered under warranty. So that's certainly a very good thing for those of you buying this car.
And, you know, of course, just like with what Tesla does, Rivian also does the whole mobile service thing. So most of the issues, if they do come up, you can schedule an appointment and have somebody actually come to your house, make that repair. They do have select service centers around the country. Of course, not as common as, you know, like a dealership for like Mercedes or something like that. But, you know, they do have some areas around the country.
And I know a lot of people can be leery when it comes to buying from a new brand like Rivian, but we did talk quite a bit to the owner of this vehicle this morning about his ownership experience so far with this Rivian R1S, and he said it's been a very good ownership experience. He's done some services, and they were very good and responsive. They came to his house and fixed things up. So I think that is really a little bit of a testament to Rivian's customer service for those of you curious about how that's going to be for a new brand like Rivian.
Right, and this model has about 3,000 miles on it.
And I will say the fit and finish in here is very impressive. I mean, we're in a lot of new vehicles every year. I mean, hundreds of new vehicles, and this does not stand out as like having poor fit and finish. It actually has really good fit and finish, which is something that cannot be said about another electric car manufacturer. And how much is this R1S going to cost? Well, currently the prices start at $78,000 for an R1S adventure trim level. Now they do change the prices a lot, so don't get mad at me if they change the price and it goes up or down. It does change and vary a lot. The time of this filming is $78,000 at the starting point. Now, this particular model is the launch edition. So if you want one similarly spec'd out, it's going to be about $100,000 currently. You cannot actually get a launch edition model because those are all sold out at this current time. And guys, that's where we're going to leave off on this in-depth review of the all-new Rivian R1S. Now, of course, if you enjoyed watching this video, we would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below, because it really helps us out. It helps give us opportunities like this where we can reach out to an owner and he can graciously let us review this really cool vehicle that we would otherwise not have any access to. So special shout out to him for being nice enough to let us review this vehicle and show you guys all the cool features that this R1S has. Now, if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. You make this all possible, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.